And we always say, you guys. What do you say here? North Carolina. Who cares? Good evening, folks. Before I begin, I always start off my program by thanking all the teachers, all the police officers, anybody working with kids. Because not one of them got into the business to make money. You know? To me, teachers are the most underpaid. Any civil servant is the most underpaid, unappreciated people in the world. I could never be a teacher. You know why? To be a teacher in America, boy, you better have a lot of patience. I have zero. I end up hurting the kids, man, and someone hurt me bad. They drive me flipping nuts. The reason, I'm serious, we talk about heroes being baseball players, football players, they're not heroes. Heroes are the ones that sacrifice their life to make a difference in kids' lives. In my opinion, these teachers, these officers could make a lot more money doing other things. They really could be. They sacrifice their life to make a difference in kids' lives. Would you give the teachers, staff members, police officers? I have so many people I want to thank for bringing me here. The principal, Kathy Tolman, Dr. Kathy Tolman, the principal. Your superintendents are here. The two judges, I can't believe two judges showed up there. That's pretty cool. That's how I was in front of the judges department. 50 years ago, all right? Come on, a long time ago. But it's always good to see judges. Actually, I was at a conference, and you might have been there in Oregon about 7 years ago, where all the judges were there, keynote speaker. Wow. Oh, thousands of judges just wanted to do it. But anyway, mostly I want to thank all you parents for being here tonight. American Idol's on tonight. You guys have been doing that. You guys have been doing a lot of different things. But what it shows me is you really care about your community. You could have been doing a million other things. And I said to the people today, if you get 15 parents here, you'd be lucky. If you feed them, hundreds will show up. If you offer babysitting, someone will show up. But if you don't do nothing, nothing's going to show up. You might get 10 or 15 of them. But you know what? We have over 100 parents in here tonight. I stopped counting at 78 of them earlier, so, and more have come. So thank you for coming out. It shows me that you really care about your community and matters to you. Now, before I begin speaking, I always do a disclaimer with parents. Some of you may walk out on me tonight. I expect it. Some parents, some staff members get mad at me when I'm talking. I expect that. I'm very brutal when I talk. Some people say I'm too real, tone it down. I don't believe in toning it down. That's the way this world is right now. I think all parents, I want you to hear this, I think all parents do the best job they can do. But man, some of them really fail bad. You know why? They were brought up from parents before them. And then parents before them. How many of you have ever heard the saying, like father, like son, like mother, like daughter? Anybody ever hear that saying? Okay. How many in this room believe that statement to be true? Okay. I believe it to be true for most kids. Again, I'm not here to disrespect nobody in the audience. I was probably the worst parent you have ever seen in your life when I grew up. You know? I grew up with bad conditions. Like father, like son, like mother, like daughter. You know? I tell you what, I never hated somebody in my life as much as my father. I would spit on the ground he walked on. I made myself a promise when I was a small boy, I would never, ever end up like him. Why not? When I was 15 years old, I was an alcoholic. At 16, I was a junkie. I used to beat my kids physically. I used to beat my kids verbally. It's the way I was brought up. As a matter of fact, I was brought up with a woman back boxing. You slap her, you bring her back in line. You don't put up with that with any woman. Like father, like son, my oldest boy joined his first gang when he was 12 years old. Got out when he was 19. And I just thank God he got out of that garbage. You wouldn't believe how many kids I work with today that come from alcoholic parents. Guess what happens when those kids get older? They end up alcoholics. Happens most of the time. You wouldn't believe how many kids I work with today that were beat a lot when they were younger. Guess what happens to those kids when they get older? Well, if it's a woman, they usually date somebody that beats them, right? They do, I don't know why. They marry somebody that beats them, or they beat their own kids like I used to do. Like father, like son, like mother, like daughter. When I was 33 years old, I went to therapy for the very first time. That's when I found out what those words and fists did to me. I made myself a promise from that moment on. I would never, ever hit my kids or call them another name. My boys hated my guts. It took me a long, long time for them to start trusting me again and caring about me. Over 5 years of work. Right now, my boys are my closest friends in life. Thank God they forgave me. I remember the very first day I was in therapy. How many of you have ever been in therapy? You all should be. You got kids, you need it. You got grandkids, you need it. If you're an officer, man, you need to go once a month. I remember the very first day of therapy, my therapist said to me, Ron, someday you'll be done with therapy. I always tell people ahead of time how much time they should be in therapy. He was one of those progressive guys. He goes, someday you're done with therapy when you're willing to forgive your father. It might take 6 months, it might take 9 months. In your case, you're pretty bad off. Thanks, Mr. Therapist. Like that. He goes, in your case, it might take you a whole year. But someday, you're done with therapy when you're willing to forgive your father. I looked at my therapist and said, over my dead body, that day will never happen. And he smiled at me, looked a little bit like Stevie Wonder. He said, all right, we'll deal with that issue at another time. Yeah, maybe. 6 months later, he looks at me one day, he goes, Ron, have you thought about forgiving your father yet? We talked about that. And I jumped out of my chair and said, I told you, man, I will never, ever, never forgive that man. Now let that part of my life alone. I don't want to do this no more. He looked at me and he smiled at me. And he said, Ron, I have to tell you something professional. You will never heal completely until the day you're willing to forgive your father. Then, you also got to forgive yourself. I looked at my therapist and go, I ain't going to happen this lifetime. He said, all right. 6 months later, I'm still in therapy, and he looks at me one day and goes, Ron, it's that time again. Are you willing to forgive your father? No. 6 months later, no. 6 months later, no. Now, it wasn't like I was in therapy once every 6 months. I was going twice a week. After 3 years of intense therapy, I finally walked in his office. I said, I think it's time. I hadn't seen my father in 15 years. I'll never forget the day I rang his doorbell. He came to the door. Boy, he looked different. A lot smaller than I remembered. He must have shrunk a lot. After a few minutes of small talk, I finally looked at my father. Dad, why did he treat his kid so bad? He looked at me and said, I don't think I was that bad, Ron. I go, how can you say that? I lived it, Dad. He looked at me and said, when I was a small boy, every time I misbehaved, my father would drag me downstairs. He would beat me back in the walk. Then he'd tie a dog collar around my neck and chain me to a pole. I had to sit sometimes eating food out of a dog bowl we brought me. I knew he was speaking the truth that day because tears were coming out of his eyes. And I looked at my father and go, why on earth have you ever told nobody that? You know what he said to me? I remember I said yesterday. He looked at me and was writing. I was taught over and over and over as a small boy, whatever happens in a family
stays in the family.
Isn't that wild? Think about that. Whatever stays in the family, whatever happens in the family stays in the family. You know, you wouldn't think how many kids I work with that's been sexually or physically abused that has told me that. And I tell kids, that ain't true. Why do you think so many adults are drunks? Why do you think so many adults are so shut down? Why do you think so many adults stop caring themselves? Something bad happened to them, and they never dealt with their issues. So then they take it out on everybody around them. I always tell kids, do not go home tonight and beat up your parents. Please don't do that. If your parents ever hit you, know one thing, most likely they were hit themselves. If they ever called you a name, know one thing, they were called names themselves. You come from violence to violence most of the time, not always. You come from love most of the time with love. You know? I always tell kids, you know, I'm going to have children your own someday. You want healthy kids? Don't hit them. Spanking's bad enough, isn't it? And I don't even believe in spankings no more. There's better ways. But don't ever hit a kid. Don't slap them. Don't hit them. Spanking's fine. You really want your kids to healthy kid, tell them? Don't you ever call another kid a name. Don't call your kids names. Ain't this really wild? Think about this. It's the adults that call kids most names. You talk about bullying. It starts with the adults. Oh, sorry, you guys. This program is about you tonight, not the boys. Come on, but think about this. It's the adults that call kids most names. I asked the But when a child don't want to do it, we have to stoop so low by abusing that child. Why do we do that for? We all have things we love to do. We all have things we hate to do, don't we? Boy, I hate cleaning toilets, don't you? I get so lazy when somebody tells me to clean the toilet. You know there's a pee on them and a tube on them? You know how women always miss the toilet seats? They can't aim, and then they blame the guys, right? But I love shoveling snow. I love cutting grass. Some kids don't like school. Does it make them lazy? Maybe they have bad teachers growing up. Not here in Newport. Down the street, a lot of them, right? White Oaks. You know, I can walk up to any kid. What's your name? Ellie. I can walk up to Ellie and say, Ellie, you're lazy right now. That might be true, but it doesn't make her a lazy person. Do you understand what I'm saying, parents? You know, we have zero tolerance for drugs and alcohol in one of our school systems. Let's stop the abuse. Verbal abuse is the #1 reason kids stop caring about life. That's #1 reason. We stop the abuse. You know, we stop the abuse if we know what drugs and alcohol problem. They say the job of a parent is to provide happy memories. Wouldn't that be ducky if that was true? We'd have no more prisons. All jails would be gone if that was a true statement. At least 90% of them. Will you also agree about that statement? The job of a parent is to provide happy memories. I know you all be dumb different before you, but I'm just saying. So why am I here tonight? We're going to talk about bullying a little bit. We're going to talk about teasing. But you know, we're going to talk about a lot of things. First of all, we're going to talk about why kids are lied to so much. Kids are lied to all the time, aren't they? Let me ask you parents a question. Susan, stop. What happens when kids get lied to a lot? What's the #1 thing that happens to children when they get lied to a lot? They start believing it. Our prisons right now are overflowing with inmates that believe that garbage. I think that's the #1 reason people go to jail. They start believing the stupid, worthless, ignorant. They start hanging on gangs. The #1 reason kids join gangs is family. They ain't got it at home. They'll find a way to find it, right? I'm just speaking the truth. So when I go to schools, my whole purpose for going to schools is to challenge kids' belief systems about 2 things. #1, drugs and alcohol. Have you ever noticed in America today how many kids are walking around thinking drugs and alcohol are cool? Who would teach a kid that kind of garbage? We got parents. I don't know how many times my father would be sitting and drinking a 6-pack of beer, and he'd look at me and say, I don't want you to do this when you get older, it's bad for you. Thanks, Bob. You too? But then you got TV. TV glamorizes and glorifies drugs and alcohol. You've all seen the commercials of Miller, Budweiser, Coors, all those hot looking girls, right, man? And you got all those beautiful looking boys just sitting there drooling thinking about them. And they don't stop there. And you notice all those beautiful froggies and lizards lately? How many of you parents in this room and grandparents in this room have seen a cop show on TV where they have drug dealers and gangbangers? What does every drug dealer and gangbanger look like on TV? I'm not insulting nobody, but they're either black or Latino, aren't they? I'm not being a racist pig, I'm not. They're portrayed by our heroes. There's Ice Cube, Ice-T, 50 Cent, Vanilla Fudge. That was a joke for anybody about 40. They're driving around in a brand new Cadillacs, Lincolns, SUVs. Have you ever seen one driving an 85 Volkswagen? They have a lot of money and power, lots of money, respect, lots of money and love. What is the American dream today? Money. Everybody wants to be rich, right? It's too bad nobody's teaching our children the reality of drugs and alcohol. As adults in America, we have failed our kids. We have done such a lousy, stinking job, and we allow Washington, D.C., the government, to come up with all this garbage and allow these companies to do whatever they want to do. I specialize in drug and alcohol treatment centers. I've been to over 400 of them the last 10 years. I have been to the best treatment centers in the world. You guys ever hear the Hazelton Foundation out of Minnesota, Betty Ford Foundation, Sierra Tucson? You people got to hear this, seriously. People actually spend between $1,000 and $10,000 a day. Now the ones that spend $10,000 a day are the Lindsay Lohans, Britney Spears, the rich people. Imagine spending $10,000 a day and do it for 30 days. Because the average stay in these treatment centers is between 28 and 31 days. They even came out with a movie we call 28 Days. You see it with Sandra Bullock? So think about it. These people People end up spending between $30,000 and $300,000 one month trying to break their addictions of drug and alcohol. You know what the counselors told me in these places? And they're the best counselors in the world. They only hire the elite. They told me once you hit the age of 40 and you've been messing around with cocaine, heroin, or crystal meth for a long period of time, your chance of beating those addictions are 1 out of 100. So what you're telling people is 99 out of 100 junkies in America die young. The average age of a junkie today is between 35 and 40. Most people today last 75, 80, 85. It's half a lifetime. Let's talk about the drugs for a minute. I'm sure a lot of this room know you alcoholics. They told me if you've been drinking heavily for 15, 20 years, that isn't that long. You know, you all know this. A lot of kids start off with 17, 18, 19. At the age of 40, they finally want to quit. I always tell kids, your chances of quitting alcohol are 3 out of 100. They said if you take 36 drunks, put them in a small room, 34 of them will die of alcohol-related disease. The heart will give out, the liver, the kidneys. One will end up in a mental institution, and one will have a chance of recovery. You want to know something? I don't believe it's at all. I have been around drunks my whole life. I believe maybe 1 out of 75, once they hit 40, recover. You know why? We have a thing called dopamine in our brain. That's what gives us joy in life. Well, after years and years of drug and alcohol use, it's completely gone, it's erased. They say it takes 3 years of deep depression and pain to get it back. You've all heard the word relapse, right? Why do you think that's so popular for people? I'm telling you something, most people can't quit, it's impossible. Don't you wish Budweiser and Miller and Jack Daniels told us that when we were younger? We have all these cautions about cigarettes and cancer. Why don't we get real with people? Now, if anybody in this room ever watched an alcoholic or junkie die? But I always tell kids, if you're being honest, you know it's a slow, painful, ugly, nasty, and slow death. My father died from it. My mother died from complications. 2 years ago, I had 3 of my friends die in the same year. One was only 42 years of age. A year before he died, I ran into him on the streets of Minneapolis, and I said to the person, why don't you slow down? Think about your family members. He looked at me and said, why don't you mind your own business? I can quit anytime I want. You ever notice all the drunks and potheads say that? I'm serious, especially our teenagers. You know, my friend died. We left 3 beautiful daughters behind. Precious angels. One was 14, one was 11, and one was only 8. And I tell you parents straight up, those kids didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve to be left behind. We don't have a daddy no more, once again. They didn't deserve to be brought up by a drunk. Nobody does. You know what the 14-year-old daughter's doing right now? She's getting high, drinking 5, 6 days a week. Anybody here want to guess why? Like father, like son, mother, like God. You know what she told me? She's depressed. Drugs and alcohol make her feel better. Well, they do. Glass of beer gets a little tipsy. A joint, depending how good it is, huh? Home burn some good ganji. Good ganji, one hit, bam, we're in the twilight zone, aren't we? Okay, everybody's looking down like, don't point me out. It's true. It makes you feel better. The problem with drugs and alcohol, it does make you, I'm always honest with the kids. Drugs and alcohol do make us feel better. The problem with them is the addiction is such a monster to stop. Anybody here want to take a guess what the average age most addicts become addicted at? Give them a round of applause. You got the answer. Between 12 and 16. The average age is 14, 15. Want to hear something scary? 50% of the kids get addicted as teenagers die young. It's that high. Another 25% leads very hard, miserable life. And have you noticed something? It's never the addict that suffers the most. They're worried about one thing. It's always the family members. Always. Would y'all be willing to be honest with me for 5 minutes? I don't normally don't do this with parents, but there's so many of you in here. I want to show you adults, you parents and grandparents that's happening in America today. Would y'all be willing to be honest with me? Is there anybody in this audience not willing to be honest? She looks at me and says, "Depends who you ask." I'll hurt that lady. All right, I'm going to show you guys what's happening. All I'm going to ask you to do is try to be honest. Cool? Here we go. How many in this room have ever had a loved one? Father, mother, brother, sister, grandparent, maybe your favorite aunt, uncle, niece, nephew. How many in this room have ever had a loved one who's ever died from drug or alcohol abuse? Would you please stand? Please. Now, when I go to this room and look around, all you people standing, get comfortable. I want you to keep standing. We're going to get a bunch of people joining you in about 30 seconds. All you people sitting, please give the people standing a round of applause. Remember, y'all told me to be honest. Here's my next question. How many in this group have ever had a loved one? Father, mother, brother, sister, grandparent, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, significant other who's been in jail or is in jail right now because of drug or alcohol abuse. Would you please stand up? How many in this group have had a loved one who's ever lost a job because of drug or alcohol abuse? Would you now please stand up? Raise your hand if it's happened in your family. Well, how many in this group know someone who's lost a job, they can't even feed their families because of the addiction? Look around, people. Look around. How many in this group have had a loved one who's ever been, maybe it's happened to you? How many in this group have a loved one, father, mother, brother, sister, grandparent, who's been separated or divorced because of drug or alcohol abuse? Would you now please stand up? Raise your hand if it's happened in your family or to you. How many in this group have ever seen violence at home or while you're dating somebody because of drug or alcohol abuse? Would you now please stand up? Raise your hand if it's happened in your families or to you. How many in this group have had a loved one who's ever been in a bad car accident, been badly hurt, or hurt others because of drug or alcohol abuse? Would you please stand up? Raise your hand if it's happened in your family. It's you. You people sitting must feel comfortable, huh? Last question. How many in this group have ever had a friend of yours? May not be your best friend, but a really close friend of yours died, been in jail, been beaten down on, committed suicide, been in a car accident because of drug or alcohol abuse? Would you now please stand up if it's happened to one of your friends? Raise your hand if it's happened to one of your friends. Now, I want everybody in this room to look around one last time. Look around. Isn't this crazy? I want to see about 8, 10 people sitting out of over 100. Yeah. Now, if you're sitting right now, do you feel comfortable? Probably, huh? You shouldn't. The people standing are the ones that should feel uncomfortable. Now, if you're sitting down right now, 3 things are happening. Number 1, you don't understand English. Number 2, you're lying and in denial. Or number 3, which I gotta tell you people, I trust you and I believe you. Look around, people that are sitting. I want you to hear this. Do you realize starting today how really, 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 really lucky and blessed you are? You are the lucky one. Because everybody standing wishes they were sitting, to be honest. All you people standing, I want you to hear this. You're not alone. Look around. And they tell me, before I got here, I had one teacher tell me, we don't have any problems around here. That teacher saw me yesterday, she came up and apologized. She goes, oh my God, I never realized what's happening in this area. Everybody, give everybody else a round of applause. You'll never see that exercise on TV. They'll never show us the pain, the ugliness, nor the despair. What TV is doing is they're seducing our children, they're brainwashing our children, and they're lying to them. How many in this room have ever watched a baseball, football, basketball, soccer, or hockey game on TV? Next time you watch a game on TV, do yourself a favor. I know it's sort of painful watching those teams from North Carolina right now, the Panthers. But do me a favor. Next time you watch a game, grab all your family members. I think this is really important. Watch the game. Last 2 to 3 hours on the average. But what I want you to do next time, count every commercial you see of Miller, Budweiser, Coors, those new Corona commercials. Have you seen those on the beaches with the man and woman with the Corona between them? How about all those rum commercials, all those hot women on the islands? You know what I'm talking about, sir? Anybody here want to take a guess how many alcohol commercials could count during one lousy, stinking game? Yes, ma'am. 25. Give a round of applause. The kids are listening today. You'll count 20, 25 commercials. And every commercial you see on TV, seriously, you see men jumping over mountains. Remember those Coors commercials? See the most beautiful women in the world, gorgeous horses. Everybody's having fun, aren't they? I always tell kids, can you imagine the next time you watch a game on TV, if they showed you 10 commercials, your friend's dying. Next time you watch a game on TV, once again you watch your daddy beating on your mommy. Or maybe this time it's your sister, brother, or you. Because a lot of times alcoholics can go by, and not all of them, a lot of them do. Next time you watch a game on TV, you watch your best friends get in car accidents or go to jail. What would happen? They showed our kids the truth. They would go bankrupt. So they got to lie, they have to seduce us, and they have to brainwash us. And they're good at it. I have an article on me right now when I was at the airport, when I was telling children that beer boosts our bone density. You hear milk? How many in this room have ever heard, seriously, be honest with this one, all right? How many in this room have ever heard a glass of red wine is good for you? Yeah, doctors recommend it. Yay! What a bunch of lies. I mean, that is the most stupid, ignorant lie I've ever heard. You buy the same ingredients in red wine that you would in grape juice. One's fermented, one ain't. One is good for us, one is nothing but a brown paper made wine or drunk. The treatment center said you drink a glass of red wine a day, you're an addict. God, I'm sick of the lies, aren't you all? I mean, aren't you? I go to schools, I see kids all back in groups, their parents are drunk the night before. I see so many kids that are homeless, or they're living with their aunties, uncles, grandparents. We don't really get me fed up. When I see a kid in middle school, high school, thinking it's cool getting high, if I know they keep thinking that way, they'll probably end up another statistic. I'm sick of the lies, aren't you all? But the biggest reason I come to schools besides drugs and alcohol, one last thing, I haven't talked about this yet. You know, I go to a lot of places, and there's a lot of people right now, experts, going around giving parents warning signs. Have you talked to experts at this school yet? Most of them don't know nothing. So I went to the experts. The experts are the tavern owners and the drug dealers, because they are the experts. And I said, I'm telling you what the problems we have in America. And do you know what they told me? They said there are 4 stages of drug and alcohol abuse. And the problem in America, most adults are stuck in stage 2 or 3. So I'm going to tell you the stages just so you all know about them. And not to get you mad, not to get you upset, but you should know this for your kids. Stage 1 is experimental. Is it dangerous? 45% of kids puff gasoline for the very first time, not for a brain damage. Puffing gas is the cheapest high in the world. You take some gas, put it into a rig, put a hood over your shoulder, bam, you're gone. Do kids really have the right to experiment? I've never met a child in my life that didn't think they have a right to experiment. They all experiment. Second stage is an occasional user. What do you have as an occasional user? Somebody does it once in a while. Like kids that use it at prom or homecoming in high school. For adults, it's Super Bowls, it's teacher conferences. I was at a principal conference, I didn't say this today, but I was at a principal conference in Oregon. I'm not kidding, half the principals were drunk by 8 o'clock at night. It's Miller time. I don't have that problem this day. Third stage of drug and alcohol abuse is a burglar. How often you got to use to be a burglar? What do you think they say? You know what they say to me, the tavern owners, drug dealers? They say they use it on the weekend, you're a burglar. You know every tavern owner, every drug dealer stockpiles for the weekend? Fourth stage, or the regular also use during the week also once in a while, don't they? Like special occasions. Like for adults, it's cutting the grass, shoveling snow, going through a divorce, those are special occasions, finally got rid of them. Fourth stage of drug and alcohol abuse is the addict. Let me ask you one last question, then we'll move on. How often do you got to use to be an addict? No, I wish. Best drug and alcohol treatments tell me you use once a week. Wow. Now I don't agree with that. I want you all to hear that. I know you use 3 times a week. 3 or 4 times a week. I know that. Now there's different levels of addiction. There's like a lady that drinks a man drinks a glass of red wine a night. That ain't so bad compared to a quart of Jack Daniels. That could be real bad to drink one of those every night, right? So there's different levels of addiction. Let me tell you something, man. A lot of adults, they reach stage 4 when a kid dies, something bad happens to them, and if they have a loving family around them, they bring them back to stage 2 and 3, right? But when a kid, teenager, gets stage 4, what do they hang out with? Their friends who are also using, and they're also stage 4. I wish I could talk to you people for the next hour about drug and alcohol abuse, because there's so much I want to tell you, but I gotta start talking about other things also. But I told ladies today, I come to schools once a year, and I talk about how bad drug and alcohol abuse is, how crazy it is right now. And yet these people hear 20,000 commercials of Miller and Budweiser telling them how cool it is. What are you going to listen to? Parents, speak up. Speak up. Grandparents, speak up. You saw how many people were standing. We got to get out of denial. We got to start helping our kids and let them know what's really happening out there. Because I'm sick of these companies lying to our children. But the biggest reason I come to schools is to challenge kids' belief systems of who they think they are. You ever notice in America today how many kids walk around thinking they're better than kids? We call them snobs. You got any here, Newport? Not at these schools, right? where you are, we're all the same, aren't we? Hey, you ever notice how many kids walk around thinking they're stupid or dumb? Do you know I've never met a dumb kid? There's no such thing as a dumb child. Now I think a lot of kids that learn different like me. I learn different than most kids do. See, if I sit in class with a teacher, and no disrespect to you teachers, but they can talk to me until they're blue in the face, and by the next day I'll forget everything they said to me. Like this young lady here told me how to get from Newport to Raleigh, we had to go there tonight. I probably end up in Atlanta. Because unless I write it down, I will forget. If my man right here says, Ron, go 3 blocks, make a right-hand turn, go another block, make a left-hand turn, by his clear instructions, I'll forget them all. Does that make me stupid or dumb? No, it means I look different, right? See, when I was a small boy, I would have been labeled ADD. Anybody here know what it stands for? Attention Deficit Disorder. I have that, can you tell? And I'm really proud of it. See, in my opinion, most kids with ADD are just as brilliant as anybody else. Man, I looked at a lot of kids with ADD within 2 years of making $120,000 a year. Best salespeople I've ever met in my life are ADD. They all sell everybody else 4 to 5 to 1. Best business owners I've ever met in my life are ADDs. You give these people something they love to do, they won't stop. Guys, when they're secret, most millionaires today are ADD. Bet you always should wear on. Best artists I've ever seen in my life are ADD. Anybody here want to take a guess where most of the great artists are today? Go to prison. You'll find the best art in the world. And yet those people are so beat down, they don't even know who they are anymore. I knew I was looking at kindergarten. Remember kindergarten? I just got the teachers at nap time and said, excuse me, ma'am, can I please go outside and play a little bit? And they look at me, no, little Ronnie, it is now time for a nap. And I look at them and go, I ain't tired. Can I please go outside and play a little bit? And they look at me and go, little Ronnie, come on. Grab your little blanket, lay down, you'll fall asleep. I ain't tired. So they lock me in a closet. I love the teachers 4 or 5 times in 1 hour after I go to the bathroom. I used to love the water hallways when I was a kid. I get bored easily. How many in this group get bored easily? Do you know that's a good thing? It means your brains are working. Now let me ask you a question. Should all know this answer? If you have 20 kids in a middle school, high school classroom, and 2 kids are disrupting the classroom, what happens to those 2 kids? Yeah, they get sent down to the principal's office. Happens all the time. I don't blame the teachers. If I had 20 kids in my classroom and 2 would be disrupting all the time, I'd have a hard time with those 2 kids, wouldn't you? You know what I would do? I'd get rid of the 18 and keep those 2, because they're a lot like me. Those normal kids drive me to nuts. See, when I was a small boy, I would have been labeled ADD, ADHD, EBCD, LD, whatever that stuff. I cannot believe you label kids so stupidly, can you? When I was ADD, they told me I was attention deficit disorder. ADHD, now they're telling me I'm hyper disorder, very hyper. EBD, I love this one. Now they're telling me I'm emotionally, behaviorally disturbed. Like I just got a mental emotion yesterday. And every couple of years, have you noticed about our government? Every 4 years they change them. Remember 8 years ago, everybody was bipolar? 4 years ago, everybody's OPD. Sounds like Star Wars, doesn't it? Oppositional, behavioral, defiant. Who's the bully in that situation? Our school systems are the bullies. And you know why we label kids? I tell you why. Money. It's all about special ed monies and grant monies. But you know what I think we should start doing from now on? Because we got a new label coming out this next year. I promise you, a new one's coming out. They come out every 6 months to a year. They should label all kids BBN. Don't you think? What does BBN mean? Brilliance beyond normal. Every kid is smart. You know, there's that one kid in this school system dumb anybody else? There's not one kid smarter than anybody else. Where do you come up with this garbage? We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. My weakness is a computer. I'll show you how to smash that little sucker when I hate it. Oh my God. But yet I can take any company and turn it around. I can outsell anybody anytime if I believe in a product. If I line up everybody in this circle gets that back wall, and I give you 2 sticky instructions. Run as fast as you can. Number 1, touch the stage at the exact same time. What happens? Impossible. Some of you run faster, some of you run slower than other kids. It's the same thing with our education. You know what they found out 2 years ago in America finally? They're finally coming out with this. In America today, 1 out of 5 children learn by listening to teachers. How do most teachers teach? They talk. They do a whole lesson plan around talking. I mean, that's the way they teach. You guys want to hear something? A students learn that way. An A student can listen to a teacher, repeat what they say. I wish I could do that. Would have made my life a lot easier, huh? B students learn by listening to teachers. C students, I always tell a teacher, if you ever see students student, grandparents, parents, if you have a C student at home, know one thing. They are studying hard. They are studying twice as hard as a B or A student. Now, B and A students got to study, don't get me wrong, but not half as hard as a C student. That's research-based. D students, got any D students at home? You're giving up. F students, they haven't listened to a flipping word you said the last 5 years. I find these kids that struggle the most in school among the smartest ones. They said Einstein was an idiot, he had dyslexia. Well, let's give him some rhythm. I mean, seriously, folks, what we're doing in school systems is crazy. When kids hype in kindergarten, first, second grade, what do? We medicate them. Let's slow them down. It's like, what? I was at a school, seriously, 300 kids at the school, K to 12. I asked the nurse, how many of your kids are driven? She looked at me, she said, I don't want to talk about it. Well, I do. She said, I don't want to talk about it. I do. How many are on driven or form of it? She goes, 17. And I said, professional. How many are longer? You know what she told me? Maybe 3 or 4. Some did, but most don't. You know, I was telling kids, if you're sitting in a classroom, talk to your teachers. If you got great teachers in this school, great teachers, talk to them. It doesn't make you stupid or dumb. You know, when I come to school, I'll say one prayer, and does everyone remember the hopes and dreams? Because if a child remembers the hopes and dreams, guess what happens? They come true. They might have to study hard, they might have to bust their butt, stay away from drugs and alcohol, the hopes and dreams come alive. Without hope and dream, what do we have? Nothing. Nothing. So, in my opinion, parents and grandparents should always be talking about their child's hopes and dreams. Keep them alive for them. Help them. There are 3 dream killers in America today. Anybody here know what the #1 dream killer is for teenagers? Parents are #4. It's true. What's the #1 dream killer for teenagers? Yes. Drugs and alcohol. Give her a round of applause. I tell kids, if you're smoking marijuana 3 times a week, you're addicted. Not a day, a week. A week. It's funny how many kids think marijuana is safe. It's amazing, isn't it? It isn't safe. It's a horrible drug. I don't know how many times I was especially going 65 miles an hour. I come back out of the joint. 5 minutes later, I notice all these cars flying past me. I look at my speed out, I'm going 20. Now, how safe is that? It's a dangerous drug. Second dream killer is hanging around with negative people. What the heck's a negative person? Somebody bad-mouthing you, somebody making fun of you, somebody telling you can't accomplish something. You know 85% of kids that come out of jail go back in the first year. Is that right, judges? About 85%. The #1 reason they come out of jail and they hang out with the same fools. So I always tell kids, same thing with treatment centers. The reason people relapse, they come out of those places, they spend all that money, then they got to hang out with the same family members or the same fools. Every time I go to jail, I tell kids, you want to do something different when you get out of here? You want to be successful? Get rid of your friends when you go back home. It'll be the hardest choice you'll ever make. It'll be the best choice you will ever make. Third dream killer, and this is one that drives me nuts, because it happens to most kids in kindergarten, first, second grade, if it happens, it's by finding a kid that quits believing in themselves. Why would any child quit believing in themselves for? There's a lot of reasons, but there's 3 main reasons nobody wants to talk about in America. They've been sexually abused, they've been physically abused, and the #1 killer in kindergarten, burglaries. I always tell kids, every time you find another kid in name, say taking a razor blade or a knife and cutting their spirits, cutting their souls. And when you go, well, I'm just teasing, well, your teasing stinks. Teasing is no different than bullying, name calling, cyberbullying is becoming so popular right now. So parents, if you ever see your kids bullying another kid, don't get defensive. Have boundaries and consequences, please. You see your kid bullying a kid. Because the one thing I see about parents, when they go to the principal's office, and the principal talks about your kid's bullying other kids, no, he ain't. He started it first. Quit being defensive. Just sit, listen, shut up, and hear it. And then have boundaries and consequences. And the kids that are getting bullied, we'll talk about that in a little while, because there's other steps we can make. Matter of fact, I have handouts about bullying. 5 pages for y'all to read later on. I don't want to give you an option to listen to me. So the first dream killer is drugs and alcohol. Second dream killer is hanging around negative people. And the third dream killer is, the biggest one, is verbal abuse. Verbal abuse. My name is Ron Glodowski from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How are you all doing tonight? 19 years ago, I left Milwaukee, moved to a place called Moose Lake, Minnesota. It's between Minneapolis and Duluth. And the reason I left Milwaukee, if I would have stayed there, I would have ended up dead. I'm a former gang leader in Milwaukee. I'm also a former drug kingpin and drug lord. That's with the DEA, FBI, Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis, Waukesha, Wasilla, Racine, Kenosha, Madison Police Department labeled me as for 15 years. Scary, I don't know how long. Oh my God. I'm also the former president of the Spinoza Teddy Bear Company. Now, a lot of people would be like, this guy go, what's up with that? From a gangbanger to a drug kingpin to a teddy bear company. And I have to tell you all, I am more proud of that than anything I've done in this lifetime. I started a teddy bear company over 19 years ago. There were two of us. Very cool teddy bear. His name's Spinoza. He's got a cassette player inside of him with 9 different tapes and self-esteem. It's used a lot in hospitals, nursing homes, elementary schools. When I started a company, there were two of us. 3 years ago in St. Paul, Minnesota, we had 35 employees. We did over $2 million of business a year. Pretty cool, huh? And the reason I brag about that, you've all heard the saying, can I teach an old dog new tricks? Have you all heard that one? Well, I'm an old dog, I can be taught, it's another line. You've all been taught, once a gangbanger, always a gangbanger, blood in, blood out. I ain't not hearing before it. How about this one? Once a drunk, always a drunk. A lot of them around here, right? Well, those are all lies. People can change anytime they want. It's a matter of choice. I don't care how old or young you are. I don't care what the color of your skin. If you want to change, you can change. Now, I'm not a fool. I'm not saying change is easy. It took me 5 years to turn my life around. See, when I moved from Milwaukee to Minnesota, I started hanging out with geeks. To me, the geeks are the ones in school that were straight A students. You know, your jocks, cheerleaders, big goodies, the ones that ended up being teachers and counselors, you know, principals, superintendents. They were weird people to me when I grew up, man. They just called me a lot of names, like scumbag, greaseball, lowlife. I had names for them I can't pronounce them in school. But I noticed something. The more I started hanging out with these people, the more I became like them. See, my mother always taught me who you hang with in life is who you are. Isn't that true? You hang with a gangbanger, you become one. You hang with a drunk, you hang with a pothead, you hang on somebody negative or bully. It does rub off after a while. Well, the opposite is also true. You hang on somebody positive, it does rub off. You hang on somebody doing good at school. See, who we hang with is who we are. When I moved from Milwaukee to Minnesota, I started hanging out with teachers, counselors, a lot of nurses. I love nurses. They are so cute, aren't they? You know what I'm talking about, sir? Are you married to a nurse? Well, you should. Anyway. But instead of giving me drugs and alcohol, they gave me encouragement, empowerment, and hope. After 5 years of hanging out with people, you know what happened to me? I became the biggest geek of all. To be a geek is anybody that's drug-free, minimum 2-3 years. I've been drug-free now. I'm celebrating my 28 years here. Pretty cool. Of being a geek. You know, somebody asked me if I would get high, I could look at that person and say, why on earth would you want me to damage my brain for, man? Get out of my face. Hard to say no to friends, isn't it? You know, we make over 2,000 choices a day. Hardest choice I've ever made in my life was dropping my negative friends. Best choice I've ever made in my entire life was dropping my negative friends. Out of 20 of my closest friends from years ago, today 17 are dead. 2 are doing life prison sentences. I used to ride a gang called the Outlaws. They're a lot like the Hells Angels or the Banditos. Got those guys around this place? Some of them? Well, if I would have kept riding with those people, I would have ended up dead with the rest of them. Hardest choice I've ever made in my life was dropping my colors. Best choice I have ever made was dropping my colors. I'm still alive. One of the hardest choices I've ever made in my life is going drug-free. It was a 5-year struggle for me. One of the best choices is going drug-free. Now, we make over 2,000 choices a day. The problem with choices is when we're young, we don't have much of a choice, do we? Until we become teenagers. Because do you realize once you're a teenager, everything in your life is a choice except for dying from illness? But the problem, the big problem in America is when we're young, we don't have no choices. I'll give you some examples. I was thinking, have you been sexually abused? I've never met a boy or girl in my life that wanted to be touched indecently. Have you? And yet in America, I don't know if people know this, in America today, 1 out of 3 girls, some say 1 out of 4, are sexually abused by the time of 18. We have a sickness having discussion. Never met a kid in my life that wanted to be beaten by loved ones. Whether it be the father, mother, grandparent, you know, the hose, the extension cord, the fist of belt. As a matter of fact, I have never, ever met a kid in my life that wants to be called a name. But as we get older, we have a choice, don't we? Like when I was 12 years old, I ran away from home. I got so sick of the beatings every day, I split. You call me a name when I was a teenager, I would have chosen to punch you in the face. Because you call me a name, I'm going to bring it back. And as you get older, everything's a choice. I'll give you some examples. I always tell kids, this morning and yesterday, they all chose to come to school. They could have been at home watching videos that make us sick. They could have been out at a mall shopping. You guys have malls around here? Could have been at McDonald's hanging out. They all chose to be at school. And they made an excellent choice. They tell them to give themselves a round of applause. They made it, which is really important. Another choice, everybody in this room this morning, I bet every one of you woke up this morning and you all chose to brush your teeth. At least I hope so for the person sitting next to you. I have a hard time with the nasty breath. Look at your hairstyle. Everybody Do you know there are some of you in this audience wearing underwear, some of you are not? Now let me ask you a question. Can you tell who's not wearing underwear? I can spot them out a mile away. You want me to show you? I can show you. I really can. They're the happy ones. Now let's stop that camera. But I always tell kids, everything's a joke. You do good in school, joke. You lousy in school, joke. I mean, it's a choice. Who you hang with is a choice. Do you know your attitude, your mood is a choice? You ever notice some kids walk around bad mood all the time? Usually it's the same old kids. Have you noticed that? You ever notice a lot of adults walk around and stinking bad mood a lot? Why would anybody choose bad mood? I always ask the kids in elementary school, I go, how many of you in this room in kindergarten? I go, how many of you when you come to school give it 100%? Every one of them jump up. I do, I'm not excited. But when I go to high school, like yesterday, I was at this high school yesterday, I asked the kids in high school, how many give 100%? 5% would raise their hand. On a good day, that's normal. I go, how many give school 75%? Another 50% normally raise their hand. I go, how many give school 50%? I'm not kidding you, 25% normally raise their hand. I go, how many give school 25% or less? 10% of the kids raise their hand. So my question becomes this: what the heck happened? Why do kids? God, let's say something else, huh? Why do kids care so much when they're young, but as they get older, it fades away from so? Why does that happen? I'm going to tell you my personal story really quick, because my opinion is what happens to a lot of them. See, when I was in kindergarten, I gave 100%. By the time I got to first grade, I gave 75%. I was beaten a lot when I was a kid. Not only from my parents, from other kids. By the time I got to sixth grade, I gave 50%. Sound familiar? By the time I got to ninth grade, I gave 25%. Man, by the time I got to 11th, 12th grade, I gave school 5%. The only reason I bothered going to school is my pro-laws major. I had a choice, school or jail. I thought, well, school was better than nothing. But man, I hated school, hated most kids, teachers, counselors. Most of all, I hated myself. I thought life stunk every single day. Hard for me to wake up in the morning. I asked the kids today, how many of you think that life stinks once in a while? They all raise their hands. Well, how many of you think that life stinks all the time? You'd be amazed how many kids raise their hands. Well, how many in this room have been told by your loved ones, your father, mother, brother, sister, grandparents, that you're really, really special? And every kid raises their hand. Oh, how many of you have been told by your loved ones, again, your father, mother, brother, sister, grandparents, that you're lazy, stupid, worthless, no good tramp? They all raise their hands. Well, how many in this room have ever teased another kid? Maggie, raise your hands. How many of you have ever been teased by another kid? They all raise their hands. And my last question, the most important one of all, I ask the kids, how many in this room, when your loved ones told you you were lazy, stupid, or worthless, or that you're a mistake, how many of you started believing it to be true? And about 25% of the kids on the average raise their hands. And I thank those kids for being honest. The rest of the little lighters, I tell them 4 things just happened. Number 1, some don't understand my question now. I talk so fast, sound like I'm from New Jersey, and I sound 50 weird, don't I? I haven't understood a word you said so far. You know what? This is the worst part of my program. When I do this with the kids, I always say, I don't mean to disrespect nobody, and I hate this part, but I'm going to mention it anyway. In America today, 1 out of every 3 girls, some say 1 out of every 4, have been sexually abused by the time of 18. In America today, 1 out of every 6 boys are sexually abused by the time of 18. Do you know in America today, over 50% of the boys, 1 out of every 2 have been beaten by loved ones, whether it be the father, mother, grandparent, and I ain't counting spanking. Big difference between a beating and a spanking, isn't there? If you've been beaten, you know what I'm talking about. I was at a school a couple of weeks ago, and a little boy in 4th grade walked up to me, lifted his shirt up, and his back looked like a road map. Every time a mother got mad at this poor little boy, she took out an extension cord and whipped this kid like you wouldn't believe. He had old scars on his back, no scars, cigarette burns on him, and they were wondering why he was such a bully. He begged me not to tell nobody. You know why? You don't want to end up in the foster home. I can't. In America, 1 out of every 3 girls are beaten by loved ones. And I always tell the girls, you got to be careful, man. Happens a lot when you start dating the boys. You know what I hear from the girls once in a while? They deserved it. They said they did something wrong. I always tell the girls, look, if you ever date a boy and they snap you 1 flipping time, you get rid of his sorry butt fast. Don't you ever allow a boy to put his hands on you like that. You know, a lot of us see violence at home. I used to watch my mother get beat once a week on the average. That ain't normal. I always tell girls, man, do not put up with that. Don't. But the worst thing that happens to kids, in my opinion, because of our denial, and man, we are so full of denial in America, is the verbal abuse. You know verbal abuse in this country is out of control? Do you know we're one of the few world that tolerate verbal abuse? We don't tolerate it. You know what we do in America? We celebrate verbal abuse. Everybody in this audience was programmed by the time they're 4 or 5 years old that name calling a joke. I'm through with you. How many of you have ever heard of that silly? I'm gonna change that, right? How many of you have ever heard of that stupid, ugly, sick, worthless, ignorant, insane nursery rhyme called "Sticks and Stones Get Break My Bones"? How many heard of that? Parents, come on, did you heard of it? And yet they still use that in our school systems even today. I don't know who came up with that dumb nursery rhyme, but that person's caused more death in this country than World War II did. Last year, in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 12 kids committed suicide. Elk River, Minnesota, 13 died a year by suicide. Milwaukee, over 200. Does anybody know around here how many kids committed suicide last year? I never saw them. I know that. It's some everywhere. You know what it is you teach kids in kindergarten at Lango? Sticks and stones can break our bones, but the power of a word can end up destroying your spirit, end up destroying your soul. It can make you numb by the time you're kindergarten. To me, verbal abuse is worse than physical abuse. Imagine a lot of couples when I was a kid, they heal, names don't. I got to jail a lot. I was out there a couple years ago. 12-year-old girl sitting in jail. She came up to my waist. She looks a little bit like you, you know that? Stand up for me. How old are you? 13 months in. Okay. This girl looked a lot like Ellie, but a lot smaller. She came up to my waist. I walk up to the little girl sitting in jail. I'm wondering, I never seen a girl that small. I go once a week. I never saw a girl quite that small. So I walk up to her, hey, what are you in jail for? I'm thinking, kiss me. She turns around, she looks at me, she said, murder. Yeah, 12 years of age. I asked her what happened. And she looks at me, I was on a school bus, and a 16-year-old boy every day would harass me. He called me stupid, he called me worthless. He asked me if I would get high, I tell him no, she called me a loser. Well, one day he called me a dirty, dirty name once, I snapped. I reached in my knapsack, I grabbed a knife, I went to stab him on the shoulder, shut him up. The kid moved really fast, I put it to his heart for mistake. Now, Allie, you like to kids by your names? No. Let's try it again. Allie, you like when kids call your name? No. High five. Ready? Ready? I gotta do it loud. Allie, do you like when kids call your name? No. Give her a round of applause. In my life that wants to be called a name ever. Have you ever heard of a place called Colorado, Colorado? That's where those 2 kids off of 13. That wasn't an accident. I was there the week that happened. Those 2 kids are being picked up to the jocks in that school daily until they finally snap. 3 years ago, we're in Lake, Minnesota. A little 13-year-old Indian boy walks to school. He killed 7 classmates, killed his teacher, killed a security guard, killed both grandparents, and he put his gun in his mouth and blew himself away. You know why? He's being bullied and teased once in a while. Last year, Oklahoma, 15-year-old boy stabbed a 17-year-old boy 5 times in the neck on a school bus. You know why? Bullied and teased once in a while. I always ask kids, what do you do when you see one of your best friends call somebody name? You laugh, you think it's cool, and you tell them to knock it off. See, you know, a lot of times I have a opinion about bullying. A lot of kids are afraid they're going to be snitching on somebody, especially middle school, high school. That's the big thing. I always tell kids it ain't about snitching, it's about doing what's right. Sometimes we got to make a stand. No more of this. No more. I come from a family of 6 with my mother, my father, me, and 3 brothers. Got 2.5 left right now. One of my brothers is 19 years old. He also joined the outlaw motorcycle gang. Made a choice about going to the police department. He's going 90 miles an hour in his Harley Davidson. Made a right-hand turn and made it fast enough and smashed into a bridge and died instantly. But back in the day, there were 4 of us. In our basement in Milwaukee, we had a big pool of water that did well. One of my brothers was bent over, bent a small pool of water. And the other brother snuck up behind him with the pole. And while he was bent over, took the pole and threw it at his butt, moving around. I looked to see what they were doing, and the pole came hitting my left eye, and my eye came popping out of the socket. It's actually hanging by a thread. Now, they rushed me to the hospital, and they gave me 12 hours of surgery to put my eye back in. I don't remember this happened when I was 4 years old. Before the accident, I could walk, I could talk, I had normal self-esteem. After the accident, I don't remember no part of my life. For 2 years, I was unconscious. When I finally woke up, I was 6 years old, they put me in kindergarten. Now, what happened when that pole hit my eye? It damaged my brain so bad, I couldn't talk no more. So when I went to school, my brothers would have to come in the classroom and explain to the teachers what I was trying to say, or explain to other kids what I was trying to say. Because of that, a lot of kids that are calling me stupid and dumb. A lot of kids that are beating me up because I was different. You ever notice in this country nowadays, people beat up each other all the time for the color of skin? I mean, if you're black, you end up in the wrong neighborhood, you know you may get beat or shot from it. 5 years ago, statistically years ago in Texas, they took a 23-year-old black dude, they put a rope around his head, you remember this? And they actually dragged him over 5 miles until they killed him, brother. If you're white, go to Milwaukee's north side tonight. Go to Detroit. Go to Atlanta. Go to, you know you may die when you're white in the wrong neighborhood. Do y'all know that? 10 years ago in Chicago, 11 white people got off the expressways waiting so hard, all of them were shot in the head for being white. If you're Latino, if you're Native American, if you're Asian, you might die. Now how stupid, how dumb is it when people hurt each other for the color of their skin? How dumb is it when I go to high school and I see the gangbangers beating up on the jocks, or the jocks beating up on the straight students, or the druggies for being different? I was asking kids, how dumb is it when you tease each other for being different? You know, when I was 6 years old, I was an innocent boy. I was. I used to go home from school every day crying. I never understood why kids call me names. Never understood why kids beat me up so I don't talk. By the time I got to first grade, I acted like I meant nothing. I'd be one of the kids who say, hey, sticks and stones can break my bones, things don't hurt me. You all know that's a flipping line, huh? By the time I got to second, third grade, I had a bad attitude. I was teacher's worst nightmare. I was a kid that sat out of the classroom every single day for misbehaving. I had my own little desk up in the hallway. I know some of you know what I'm talking about, huh, Mom? I'm the one sent to the principal's office 2 or 3 times a week for fighting. How many in this room, I ain't talking TV, I was asking kids, how many in this room ever seen violence at home? And do you know over 50% of the kids in middle school, high school, raise their hands to that question? Violence to me was every day part of my life. My father was a drunk and so was my mother. My dad got mad at us depending on how drunk he was. Sometimes he would take his belt off and beat us at our backs with a belt buckle so our backs would bleed. He'd tell us daily how stupid, ignorant, and worthless we were. I remember one time my older brother, Michigan, was 9 years old. He's smart house, my father at the table. My father turned around and backhanded him out with a suit on teeth. I remember when he was 11 years old, he man started beating on him, and that's the day I watched my brother's spirit die. He looked at my father and said, Dad, you want to kill me? Go out and kill me. Life means nothing anyway. Beat me all you want. When you go to school and I say some kids are teasing him, he hurt the kid pretty bad. Stabbed his first kid when he was 12 years old. Shot his first kid when he was 14. Same thing happened to me when I was 12 years old. Wouldn't call me a name and make fun of me. I don't care if I live or die. You didn't care if I hurt you or not. I always ask the kids, how many in this room are close to snapping? Most will raise their hands. So how many of you are fed up with people teasing you, your family members? They all raise their hands. See, nobody likes to be teased. Nobody likes to be bullied. Nobody likes to be beaten down. And that cyberbullying is getting crazy, right? Anyway, I'm going to end this program a little bit. When I was 33 years old, I got heavily involved with drugs and alcohol and gangs. When I was 33 years old, I put a gun in my mouth when I threw myself in. And right before I put the trigger, I remember a friend of mine got out of business. I called him up and said, Michael, how do you stop? How do you get out? Because the first thing you have to do is find out why you hate life so much, why you're so violent. Go see a therapist. I thought, I ain't that sick. And I ain't that sick. I went to therapy for 3 long years. You know what I found out? My problem started for me when I was 6 years old. See, when people call me stupid and dumb, when they told me I was worthless, I started believing it. A lot of kids do. I was 33 years old when I changed my opinion about myself. I was a lucky one. Out of 20 of my closest friends, 17 are dead. The difference between me and them, I got help, they didn't. I'm not even telling you about all my friends became alcoholics and junkies, that doesn't. I want you all to be a favor. If I give anybody this room a beautiful, beautiful puppy dog, gorgeous puppy dog, and once a week you yell and scream at them, what would happen after 1 year? They're scared, right? Every time you walk in, you'd be peeing all over you. You ever notice puppies pee on you when they're scared? Well, that's not a bad word, is it? Take the same puppy dog, and you feed them once a week for a year, what happens? They get vicious and mean. All right, kids, I know the reason you all here is for money. Ready? You guys want some money time? Want money? Kids come for one reason, money. I always tell teachers, hey teachers, you want your kids to learn more in your classroom? Pay them. You want your kids to pass these important tests that come up every year? Remember, once or twice a year, all these really important tests. You want them to pay parents? I mean, you want your kids to pass these tests? Pay them. They'll pass. Now, I was telling kids, do you know why teachers don't pay them? They ain't got no money. Teachers are the most poorest, underpaid people on the planet. I honestly think a kindergarten teacher should make $100,000 a year. What they have to put up with is nuts. Anyway, guys ready? When I ask you a question, you think you know the answer? Raise your hand. You get the answer right, you win money. Go. Moms are included. What did they come for? Okay, ready? Here we go. I'm going to ask you a question. Did you know the answer? Raise your hand. That's right. Okay, here we go. There are 7 steps to destruction, parents and grandparents. Number 1, remember I said you take a puppy dog, you beat it, you get vicious to me? Here's the first question. You call a kid stupid, dumb, and worthless enough times. What happens to the kid? Maddie? No. Almost. not put it in your mouth. Don't make me jump on you. In front of everybody. Give Kim a round of applause. You won't get stupid double worthless and they start believing it. Now, when a kid starts believing they're stupid double worthless, Maddie, what happens next? You have the answer. Give her a round of applause. Okay, so there are 7 steps of instruction. This would be, parents, grandparents, listen to this. You call a kid a name, they start believing in garbage, and what happens next? They start giving up a little bit, they start doing lousy in school. Do you know why kids do lousy in school? There's one of 3 reasons kids do lousy in school. Lousy teachers, that ain't happening around here, I can promise you. A lot of places I go to, they've got bad teachers, but not around here. Number 2 reason, they have different learning styles, and nobody's paying attention how that child learns. A lot of kids learn visually or hands-on. And a 3rd reason, and this is the biggest reason kids do lousy in school, they start believing that garbage. Most of the time, when parents and grandparents are telling them that you're lazy, you're stupid, you're worthless, and the kids start believing it. How middle school, what happens to a lot of kids in middle school? They stop caring. Can you imagine a kid in middle school not caring about life? So here's my next question. When a kid stops caring about life, what do they normally start doing next?
They start drinking.
Give her a round of applause! After that, do not put it in your pocket. They start drinking and getting high. Now, I tell people this. A lot of people use drugs and alcohol, right? But have you people noticed something? The smart ones quit, but they really slow down. They know addiction is a bad thing. But you give a kid that don't care about life, drugs and alcohol, and you know that kid figures out really fast? I can numb myself so much, I don't have to deal with this pain no more. I don't have to deal with my sexual abuse. I don't have to deal with all this garbage I've been dealt. So they start using more and more drugs, and they start using drugs and alcohol to cover up the pain. What happens next? They get, oh, you're so close. It starts with the letter A. They get, give him a round of applause. They get addicted. If they don't get help, what happens last? See, now you're not paying attention. I try to come to you. You've had your hand up 6 times in a row. I'm here, and you're like, you think I'm the boyfriend right now. What happens last? Yeah.
Suicide?
Give him a round of applause. They end up dying, or they end up in jail, or they end up, the biggest thing that a lot of people do, they end up hating. They hate their jobs, hate the people, hate. It all starts off with sexual, physical, and the number 1 killer. That's why I come to school to talk about boarding name line. The number 1 killer is a burglar. How many of y'all think back when you're 3, 4, 5 years old? How many of you have hopes and dreams when you're younger? Right? See your hands? How many of you be a teacher, counselor, nurse, doctor, attorney, Michael Jordan, Britney Spears? No. Our first black Britney Spears right there. Now I got to do me another favor. How many of you in this room right now know somebody close to you? Father, mother, brother, sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, best. How many of you know somebody that gets high or drinks at least 4 or 5 days a week? Now I want you to think of that person right now. When that person was 2, 3, 4 years old and they're thinking about their hopes and dreams, I wonder how many thought, hey, when I get older, man, my hope, my dream in life is to be an alcoholic. Wow! But I want to be a pothead. Dumb, right? I always challenge kids here. Oh, how many of you, when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, thought, hey, when I get to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't care no more. I'm going to give 50% of school. I'm going to give 25% of school. Nobody thinks that. So my question is, what happened to those kids? I tell you what happened. It's called society. We're all born innocent. The society has a way of beating a lot of us down. I always tell kids, if you've been sexually abused, talk to somebody. No one deserves it. If you've been physically abused, talk to somebody about it. And the worst of all, the verbal abuse. You know? I always tell kids, we're not animals. No one deserves to be a beating. But that name calling. You know, every kid is brilliant. Every kid is smart. You guys believe in God? Buddha, Jehovah, Allah, Krishna, they have them all covered? Not all of them. No kid is put here to be an alcoholic. No kid is put here to be a pilot or a kid to be a kid. Kids are put here for 2 reasons. One is to find their purpose. We all have a purpose. And number 2 is to reach out to businesses. You know, when I was 18 years old, I graduated from high school. I couldn't read a book. I had a 4th grade reading and staff get what he said. And this young lady here gave me an airplane model instructions with it. You guys ever see those A to B to C? But then when I want to smash that model, I've never put together a model in my life by reading instructions. How many in this room have ever read a 20-page history of geography book? By the time you get to page 19, you forgot the first 17 pages. Come on, parents. Be honest. Be honest. Or you study your butt off for a test, right? You go to school the next day, and everything you read, you forgot. I hate that. You notice how fast I talk? No? No? I've been slowing it down so much for you guys tonight. How many in this room have ever had a teacher that talks really slow and slow? They drive me flipping nuts. It's like, when you hurry up and finish your sentence. I drive other people crazy. Can you believe that? Now your kids go up and say, Ron, slow it down so we understand you better. I'll look at these kids and say, please pick up your hearing. But if I watch my little brother, my brother right here, who's my young brother right here? Don't we look a lot alike? When you stand up for the service, we look identical. Don't we look a lot alike? I see my brother put my Hardy Davidson together, and I'm watching him. Bam! I remember watching people. You know, I went back to college when I was 33 years old. I thought the teachers after class, they don't understand the word you're saying, show me. And as soon as they showed me a piece of paper, my grade was in. I went from a 1 point average in high school to 3.5 in college, just because I learned how to work. I always tell parents, grandparents, if you get this stuff in school, know one thing, they learn different. Talk to the teachers about that. 3 things a kid has to have to be successful. Number 1, they gotta have an attitude. Do you guys realize our thoughts create reality every moment of every day? If you wake up in the morning and think it's loud, you think about the day, you might be even have a bad day. You wake up in the morning thinking, oh my God, it's a beautiful, great, exciting day, what might be even have. Good day, unless somebody dies. But then it might be a better one than it was. If you wake up in the morning, parents, grandparents, remember this one, please. If your kids wake up in the morning thinking they're lazy, stupid, worthless, what's going to happen to them? They're going to struggle. They're going to have a hard life. You want to be the biggest miracle in life? Parents, grandparents, you want to be the biggest miracle in life? You can never see this enough to these kids. If your kids, grandkids, wake up in the morning remembering how smart and brilliant they are, I promise you, they will be. It may take 6 months, 9 months, it might take a whole year. A lot of these kids are beaten down at school, called all these horrible names. But if you get your kids waking up in the morning, remember who they are, how brilliant they are as Kim, how smart they are. They will be. Second thing a kid has to have is a burning desire. Hard to have a burning desire when you're beat down, isn't it? That's why I always tell kids, get help. Get help. Third thing a kid has to have, this is really hard, and that is to believe in themselves. Every one of them are smart, every one of them are brilliant, every one of them are creative. Folks, I have handouts up here. Matter of fact, what I want parents to do and grandparents to do, I have a love letter for you all to do tonight. This is what you're going to say to your kids and grandkids tonight. You ready? Something maybe some of you don't do every day. And some of you may have forgotten to do it, maybe do it once a month. Maybe some of you only do it once a year. But this is what I want you to say to your parents and your kids or grandkids tonight. Dear Kim, or dear, what's your name? Jenna, or dear Bobby, or dear Johnny. I've been busy lately, and as we rush to school and work, I often forget to tell you how much I love you. For this day, I will slow down and let you know just how special you are to me. I love the way you blank. When you smile at me, sometimes when I watch you sleep, when you're away from me too long, I worry about you when you use drugs. Sometimes during the day I think about you and I wish. No matter how old you get, no matter where you live, no matter what you do, I will always love you. You are my child. Love, Grandpa. Love, Grandma. Love. Please, Grandpa, please, before you leave tonight, start saying this to your kids and grandkids. Also, folks, I have a whole thing about what bullying is. I know some of you came in here for bullying, so I have a thing about bullying. What is bullying? Warning signs of bullying. Characteristics of children who are bullied. What to do if your child is bullying others. And again, please talk to them about expectations and consequences. Myths about bullying. Characteristics of children who are being bullied. What to do if your child is being bullied. Role ways to respond to a bully. Walk away, talk to an adult, ask for some help from some peers. Bullies rarely target kids in groups, so having a unified peer group can help them. Telling on those who is bullying is not paddling or not squealing, it's reporting and helps to keep everybody safe. You don't want to confront a bully too much because sometimes you get violent. So you don't want to confront them at the time. Walk away, talk to an adult, talk to somebody. If one adult ain't listening, what do you do next? Find another one. If that one ain't listening, where do you go to next? Go to the principal, go to the teacher, go to these five young gentlemen over here. Go to somebody. Okay? Facts about bullying. What else do we have? Anyway, please come up here. I have handouts up here for bullying. What is bullying? Also, one of the biggest problems we have right now is how do we overcome the no snitch mentality of bullying? Because one of the biggest, I was at the high school Monday night in the parent program, and so many kids are worried about squealing on somebody, or they get targeted even more. So a couple ideas I came up with today, we did staff development, and the staff said this: take ownership, not in our school, no more bullying in our school. Do something about it when a student comes to you, or a parent, do something about it. Talk to students, it's safe and okay to tell on other students. You're not squealing, you're making it safe. Make the situation personal, reverse roles. Encourage, reward, honesty. Ask yourself if it's dangerous or disruptive. So in other words, get involved. Parents, grandparents, get involved. Nobody likes to be bullied, nobody likes to be teased, nobody likes that kind of stuff at all. It's craziness. And so many kids, the first thing they do is they start losing their self-esteem. They're getting bullied. You know what? Most bullying happens in bathrooms. 43% of bullying happens in the bathroom. I used to hate it when I was in the bathroom and somebody started teasing me. Like, can I please take my pee without you bugging me for 5 minutes? We'll deal with this after class. I mean, come, 43% happen in the bathroom. Let's take it seriously, though. Bullying is a very important situation. Name calling, teasing, any of that kind of stuff. And where it starts from also is at home. If you've ever called your kids names, this is a great time to talk to them about it. Say, you know what, I didn't know any better, I apologize. Don't beat yourselves up. Nobody needs to beat themselves up about that. We've all done it. We've learned from our parents before us. We've learned from the parents before them. The nice thing about all of this, look how many people showed up tonight about bullying, about name calling. This is remarkable. What a start. Monday there were 35 people, and I was excited and happy about 35 people. We are becoming conscious. Do you remember 40 years ago when we were smoking cigarettes on airplanes, we were smoking everywhere, and it was just part of nature? There ain't no more of that. Alcohol and drugs, we're starting to learn about. We're starting to learn more and more how bad it is. Bullying, we're just starting to become conscious of how really bad it is. Some people say, boy, it's normal behavior. It is not normal behavior. It's not. It doesn't have to be. We have choices. We have choices all the time. I talked to kindergarten teachers today. I go, you guys want to stop bullying? There's a guy named Edward James Osmos. He goes to the schools. You ever hear of Edward James Osmos? He's that famous Puerto Rican actor, Stand and Deliver, Miami Vice. He goes to kindergarten classes, and there's all those girls stand up. Those girls repeat after me. You know, because all these girls are young, right? They're all repeating after you. If they touch me. If they touch me. If they hit me. If they hit me. If they make me feel less than I am. If they make me feel less than I am. No disrespect, ladies, but that was horrible. Let's try it one more time. Say it loud and proud like you mean it. If they touch me. If they hit me. If they make me feel less than I am. If they make me feel less than I am. I won't marry them. Give yourself a round of applause. Then we have the boys stand up. Same thing. If you touch me, if you hit me, if you make me feel less than I am, I won't marry you. He does it every week for 1 year solid. Every Monday morning, every Friday afternoon. 5 minutes. Then they had all the kids stand up and do that, right? Kindergarten, first, second, third. It works up until 5th grade. From 6th grade, they don't do it too much anymore. But you do it when they're young. Guess what they do? They go home at night. Mommy, Daddy, guess what I learned in school today? If you touch me, if you hit me, Mommy, Daddy, if you make me feel less than I am, I can't marry you no more. Every kid wants to marry their parents at 5 years old, remember? We all want to marry our parents. Even if our parents abuse us, we want to marry them. We can stop the abuse, we really can. I'm almost done. When I was 18 years old, I'm else. It's all about hopes and dreams. I donated books to the middle school. I donated books to the high school. I always tell kids, if you're having a hard time in life, please read my book. It can save your life. You want to buy a book with $14 a piece, autographed copy? You can buy one tonight if you want. Or I have order forms. If you don't have money, come up and get an order form. I'll send it to you. No shipping charges. Guys, want to see some sexy pictures before I leave? Oh, yeah. I'll shut my mouth. What's that? I hate the little kid. No. You know what? Bring me to your school and I really don't. Guys, want to see some sexy pictures before I leave? This is what I look like when I'm 7 years old. Wasn't that cute? This is my little Bible, my first Holy Communion. Wasn't that cute? I was sexy, wasn't I? I was hot. Now I'll show you what I look like when I was 30 years old. Some people say I look just like Jesus. Have you guys ever seen pictures of Jesus? Have you? All right, tell me the truth, okay? Do I look like Jesus or not? That's all I want to know. All right, who said Charlie Manson? I hear that a lot. When I'm 35 years old, 33 years old, I had over 35 home shots taken of me. I don't brag about these days. These are the worst days of my life. This is why I hate gangs, drugs, and alcohol. This is why I fight to see how many brothers fighting. I cannot stand that stuff. Out of 20 of my closest friends, 17 of them died. You know, and the difference between me and them, I got help with dinner. When I was 33 years old, I got some help. I always tell kids, you don't have to wait that long. If something's bothering you, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents. Parents and grandparents, when your kids are talking to you, listen. Listen. Quit responding so much and listen. They need somebody you can talk to. Because if you respond too much and too harsh, they're not going to trust you no more. They're not going to talk to you. And the biggest shame, I could never talk to my dad about nothing. I could never talk to my mother about nothing. I want you to gain money. Please don't do that to your kids. Listen to them. You got to have boundaries. You got to have consequences. But they need somebody else. Kola, Natasha, Wakatanga, Ahoba Tapriase, Wupila be rich, Wasteo, Waste, Hilamaye, Dosha. You guys don't understand Spanish? Me neither. My wife is from Mexico. We got some mad at me. I wonder what the heck she's saying now. All I know is Ola and Oklahoma. I was adopted in Lakota many years ago. I'm part of the Sioux Nation. I just did a prayer for all of you folks. Kola means friends. Natasha means grandfather, grandmother. Wakatanga means creator, God. Ahoba Tapriase means we're all one people. I mean, how many times does God have to say that? No, scriptures have to say all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to give you this. We're all the same. I'm not smarter or dumber than nobody in this room. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. The only people who make mistakes are human beings. These kids are precious, precious, brilliant.